Emilia has spent her whole life trying to eliminate the Demon Lord, Satan himself, who has raged destruction on homeland of Ente Isla. But when fate throws these two enemies together on Earth, they are forced to live a normal life as humans, while looking for a way to return home. After terrorizing the islands in the Great Sea of Ignora with his demon army, Satan launches an attack on the human race in the continent of Ente Isla. The evil maniac is determined to dominate humanity and with zero regard for human lives. He relentlessly terrorizes and sends his generals out to take over each of the 5 islands of Ente Isla. All hope appears lost in this parallel world, until the hero, Emi Justina, who we'll just call Emmy, shows up with a holy sword to destroy the devil and take back Ente Isla for the human race. With 3 of his top generals destroyed, Satan tries to defeat his enemy, but the hero has too much plot armor and is very resilient. In a bid to avoid destruction, he chickens out and unlocks a portal that leads him to Earth, alongside his loyal general Alceo. Sadao finds himself in the city of Tokyo. Almost immediately, they are arrested by the police, and it doesn't take long for them to realize that they have lost most of their magical powers and must now find a way to survive in their human forms. They even struggle to communicate with the police and soon realize that they are more or less weak-ass cosplayers. Sadao and Alceo adopt new names, Sadao Mo and Shiro Ashia, setting out to start a new life in modern-day Tokyo while scheming to get their powers and return to their parallel world, where they can get their revenge and rule once more. Dao and Shiro quickly realize that they have to find a place to live, and they find themselves in a rundown apartment to Sadao's disappointment. Like me, they are king broke, and so they start to look for a way to earn money. Sadao finds himself working part-time at a fast food restaurant called McDonald's. There, he gains an insight into the service industry and how it operates while impressing his new co-worker whose name is Chiho Sasaki. Over time, Sadao slowly transforms from a terrifying demon lord into a diligent low-class employee. Your typical grace to grass situation. Sadao engages in regular conversation with his fellow employees, trying to figure out life at McDonald's, and surprisingly, he finds pleasure in his job, inadvertently fueling his coworkers' attraction to him. He works hard and quickly gets promoted, getting closer to the top of the restaurant. It's not where you'd expect to see your average demon lord, but that's capitalism for you. I guess being a demon lord doesn't pay your bills. Meanwhile, Emma the hero also finds herself on Earth, and in a hilarious chain of events, she appears in the same city as Sadao and immediately begins searching for him so she can bring him to justice. The only problem is she has lost her powers as well, as Sadao grows more focused on his job at his restaurant, and soon crosses paths with Emi as she now works at a call center. He even lends her an umbrella, with neither of them recognizing the other, setting the pace for a comedic interaction between former enemies working their way through modern life. Eventually, Emi figures out Sadao's identity and confronts him as they both recognize each other, leaving Sadao shocked. Emi threatens Sadao and attacks him as he tries to make her see reason with him. She doesn't listen, and the two of them end up being arrested again. The police officer assumes that they are engaged in a couple's argument, but Emi argues that she'd rather die than date someone with zero riz. They are soon freed, and Emi continues threatening Sadao, who tries his best to ignore her rambling. The next day, Emi visits Sadao in anger, pissed off at the fact that he appears to be living a better life than she is. Believe me, I know the feeling. Shiro locks her out, but Sadao explains her situation and lets her in. She explains her circumstances and tells them that she was the only one who made it through the portal. The supposed hero shamelessly stalks Sadao and Shiro for a few days and discovers that they are living life like normal humans. She again confronts Sadao and asks if he plans to remain in the human world. Sadao boasts that he will soon find a way back home to Ente Isla, where he will conquer and rule once more. They soon engage in another argument, which is suddenly interrupted by a magical attack, forcing them to escape together. To make their escape, Sadao realizes that they may be facing the same enemy, for which he blames Emi. He quickly leaves her behind, only to find the stalker waiting for him at his apartment later that night. Emi explains that she has lost her wallet and needs to stay the night at Sadao's apartment. And to Shiro's surprise, Sadao allows Emi to spend the night, while wondering why the obnoxious hero has fallen so low. The next day, everyone in Tokyo watched the attack on Sadao and Emi on the national TV news. It's back at Sadao's apartment. He and Emi engage in a heated conversation about their shared predicament, where Sadao brags about his plans for domination at his soon-to-be full-time job, flipping burgers. Emi promises to find a way home and get her revenge on him before taking a dig at Sadao's name. Sadao continues navigating his way through human interactions, and as he gets better at his job, he catches the attention of his co-worker, Chiho Sasaki. Chiho has a crush on Sadao that she can't quite hide, as she often blushes like an idiot anytime he's close by. As she prepares for her date with Sadao, she has no idea that the Demon Lord is unaware of her intentions, believing that they are just hanging out as friends. Just like me, Sadao has zero experience in love and dating, and it seems like I might even be a demon lord considering all the things we have in common. At work, Imai receives a call from their attacker who tells her that eliminating both her and Sadao would be the best thing for Ente Isla. Later that day, the police find Sadao's bicycle at the scene of the attack and begin their search for him, forcing Emi to vouch for his identity and warn him about their attacker. During the date, Chiho tells Sadao about the strange language she has heard recently. She explains that it sounds like the senders of the message keep trying to find someone as they talk about a strange earthquake. It occurs to Sadao that the strange occurrence is called Idea Link, and the earthquakes are most likely from a sonar tracking spell trying to find him in Emi. Meanwhile, the shameless hero continues to stalk Sadao throughout his date, because she feels like he'll surely do something bad. After watching for a while, she gives in to her intrusive thoughts, pushing her to interrupt them. Chiho is about to confess to Sadao when he becomes distracted by the sight of Emi walking into the cafe, which leads to an argument between the two girls. Just then, there's another earthquake that knocks all three of them out. When they wake up, Chiho finds herself in the middle of a wreckage. She and Emi make up, after which she is put to sleep using a sleep spell. Emi then calls out to Sadao, and the evil figure of a transformed Sadao emerges from the debris. Emi considers using her remaining magic to murder him there and there. But in a shocking turn of events, Sadao informs her that he will help them escape the collapsing mall, leaving Emi perplexed as to why he would do so. Sadao begins to clear the rubble with his magic powers, determined to protect everyone inside the mall, while Emi stands outside the mall and gets a flashback of her joyful childhood on Ente Isla with her father before being called by the church to begin training with a magical sword to slay demons. Shortly after that, Sadao's armies raided their town and killed her father, fueling her determination to put an end to his reign of destruction and slay him. Back to the present, Sadao finds out and shares with Emi that Chiho experienced some magical effects from the spell he used on her father, Inspector Sasaki, when he first came to Japan. Sadao goes on to explain that the earthquake they recently faced was actually a deliberate attack on their lives. It's the following day. Emi pays a visit to Sadao and takes a tumble down the stairs of his apartment building. Sadao tries to help her with her injuries, but his unusual kindness unnerves Emi, prompting her to reveal the reason behind her desire to see him eliminated. She begins to talk about the past, but Sadao doesn't even have the ability to grasp people's emotions. Just then, they are interrupted by Shiro and Chiho. On seeing Emi and Sadao together, Chiho jumps to conclusion faster than a frog and ends up heartbroken, causing her to leave the scene. Just then, Sadao's landlady shows up and advises them to chase after Chiho, while hinting at her involvement with the sonar and Idea Link spells. While tearfully navigating the streets, Chiho encounters a weird guy who displays ominous black wings in front of bystanders like it's Paris Fashion Week. While approaching from a distance, Sadao, Emi, and Shiro witness an explosion. In his low-budget Batman, who Sadao recognizes as his demon general, Lucifer. Emi asks Lucifer how he managed to survive during their previous encounter on Ente Isla, but Sadao figures out that he received assistance from her former comrade, Oba Mayaya, who had pledged to return Lucifer to heaven in exchange for his aid. To Emi's astonishment, Oba also reveals himself. Lucifer then launches an attack on Sadao and his companions, but Shiro willingly takes the blow in Sadao's place. As the group flees, Sadao clarifies to Emi that Lucifer draws power from negative emotions, making him responsible for a series of robberies in the town. Sadao soon finds himself in a tight spot, so he teleports himself and Emi to a busy train station. The bewildered crowd watches as Lucifer seemingly fatally wounds Sadao with a magical bullet and destroys the overhead transport bridge. Emi and Chiho are almost crushed by the collapsing structures, but Sadao emerges in his demonic form, using the negative emotions of the onlookers to fuel his magic and save them just in time. Sadao then sets up a magical barrier, rendering the civilians unconscious while Emi calls upon her magic and engages Lucifer in an aerial battle. Shiro then arrives, now healed and in his demonic form, and joins the fight while Chiho can only watch in awe at the scene, straight out of a manga. Sadao soon manages to defeat Oba and Lucifer with a multi-layered magical punch that All Might will be super proud of. After the dust settles, Sadao and his group are like, "Hey Chiho, we're demons, so do with that information what you like." Anyways, Emi's comrades from Ente Isla, Esmeralda and Alberto, arrive through a portal, reuniting with Emi while revealing that the church back in Ente Isla has been corrupted. Later, at Sadao's apartment, Alberto explains that he employed the sonar and Idea Link spells, which Chiho intercepted. Meanwhile, Sadao uses his remaining magic to restore the city and erase the memories of the civilians. Back at McDonald's, Sadao informs Chiho that he still has enough magic left to wipe her memory, but she ends up yelling at him for even proposing such a thing. Over at the church's headquarters on Ente Isla, a girl presents a report that contradicts Archbishop Olba's previous assertion. Olba had claimed to have killed the Dark Lord, Emilia, and Alberto, but this report declares that it was all a cap. They contemplate the repercussions if they decide to reveal the truth to the entire church that Emi and the Demon Lord are very much alive. Meanwhile, in Japan, Lucifer, now a wanted man due to his involvement in recent muggings, takes up residence with Sadao and Shiro. He now goes by the name of Hanzo and has become a shut-in guru. While browsing online, Hanzo stumbles upon a rumor suggesting paranormal occurrences involving portal activations to Ente Isla, centered around an abandoned classroom in a local high school, a school attended by Chiho. Sadao and Shiro decide to investigate in the hopes of tapping into some magical power from the portal. At night, Chiho accompanies the group to the school, only to find themselves being chased by Emi. She insists on keeping a watchful eye on Sadao, despite now having the ability to return to Ente Isla at any time. I think she has fallen in love with Sadao and she is just looking for an excuse to stick close to him. They soon reach the abandoned classroom, where they discover that it once served as the base of operations for both Hanzo and Olba before their respective betrayals and alliance. Hanzo adds fuel to the fire by requesting that Sadao retrieve his forgotten PS Vita game console, claiming he merely overlooked informing them of his prior residence. Back at home, a new tenant moves into Sadao's apartment building, and Sadao finds himself in a position to help when she stumbles down the stairs and loses consciousness. It's the next morning. Suzuno Kamizuki, who had previously taken a tumble down their apartment building stairs, decides to introduce herself to Sadao, Shiro, and Hanzo. She also brings them noodles as a friendly gesture, but I'll bet she has an ulterior motive. Meanwhile, Emi receives a package containing bottles of a sacred power-boosting drink from Emeralda. As she continues her vigilant watch over Sadao's apartment, Emi spots Suzuno assisting Hanzo with chores. She decides to investigate quietly, but is caught when Suzuno leaves the apartment, causing Emi to tumble down the stairs in her escape. It's unfair how this staircase gets more attention than me. Inside Sadao's apartment, Suzuno introduces herself to Emi. She assumes Emi and Sadao are a thing because of the way they casually speak to each other, prompting Emi to quickly deny it. Outside, Emi assumes that Suzuno might have feelings for Sadao, so she tells Suzuno to make better choices instead of looking Sadao's way. It turns out Suzuno already knows who Emi is, being from Ente Isla herself, but Emi has no clue of this. As Sadao heads to work, where he's been promoted to shift supervisor, Suzuno surprises him with a homemade boxed lunch. Meanwhile, Emi keeps an eye on McDonald's from outside, and Emerald contacts her to inquire about the results of the magic drink. She also mentions that there is currently peace in Ente Isla, except for a few rumors. Emeralda further warns that the church is actively searching for the missing Olba and suggests that people might be looking for Emi as well. During Sadao's lunch break, Chiho becomes jealous when she sees the packed lunch Suzuno made for him. At the same time, while buying food at a convenience store, Emilia is ambushed by a masked man armed with a large scythe and possessing magic that nullifies her holy sword when she tries to attack him. She manages to escape the guy, and while she tries to figure out who he is, she receives a call from Chiho, whose only problem in life is the fact that someone gave her crush a lunchbox. Sometime later, Chiho and Emma pay a visit to Sadao's apartment, and to their surprise, they find Suzuno still lending a hand with domestic chores, and Chiho tries to hold herself from strangely the man-stealing bitch. In a bid to overtake her competition, she musters the courage to confess her feelings to Sadao. However, she can't help but feel conflicted due to his demon identity, considering she's already fallen for him. Suzuno ends up overhearing Chiho's heartfelt confession, so Chiho quickly bolts away in embarrassment. Suzuno seizes the opportunity to question Sadao about how he feels when people love him, and she's genuinely taken aback by his sincere response. Afterward, Suzuno meets Emi at a train station, and they both accidentally reveal their misinterpretations of recent events involving Sadao. Suzuno then introduces herself as Suzuno Bell, a resident of Ente Isla, and discloses that she was sent by the Church of Ente Isla on a mission to investigate any leads on the missing Olba. She urges Emi to return to Ente Isla to confront the church about covering up Olba's treacherous actions. But Emi remains hesitant, given the actions of her superiors, which put innocent lives at risk in an attempt to eliminate her and Sadao. Before departing, Emi advises Suzuno to be cautious about Sadao and his group discovering her true agenda. Meanwhile, a new fast food place named Kentucky Fried Chicken offers a bit of competition by opening up across the street from McDonald's, and its manager, Mitsuki, seemingly visits McDonald's to find out about their operations. Sadao, who isn't a pushover as one would expect, also instructs Shiro to do a bit of spying on their new rival as well. Suzuno and Emi, alongside her co-worker, Rika, also head over to the newly opened Kentucky Fried Chicken to get the full scoop on the so-called conflict. Inside the restaurant, Emi is frantically trying to debunk Rika's notion that she and Sadao are a couple. This leads her to start criticizing Sadao, but her rant is abruptly interrupted by an irritated Shiro, who had been doing some reconnaissance on Tucky for Sadao. After quick introductions and a bit of chat, Shiro sets the record straight for Rika, using a metaphor to clarify the history between Emi and Sadao. Meanwhile, as McDonald's business takes a hit from Kentucky during the city's festival, Sadao brainstorms about his next cause of action. Ultimately, he decides to keep his employees occupied until the right opportunity to boost business presents itself. Later, Shiro, Emi, Suzuno, and Rika pay a visit to McDonald's, but then Rika gets a rather unfavorable first impression of Sadao, much to his irritation. Sadao tries a number of marketing tricks to get festival goers to McDonald's, but constantly fails at every turn. He then comes up with the idea of incorporating the franchise within the event itself. To get bamboo plants sent for a show in front of the restaurant, Sadao makes a call to a friend, and he has his workers decorate them. He reveals a scheme to let festival goers hang wishes on the plants, and gives those who do so a free drink. Due to this excellent plan, McDonald's is soon packed full with customers. Meanwhile, Suzuno detects a strange purple aura hovering around the people in front of McDonald's as this busy scenario is happening, which confirms her suspicions about Sadao. After the successful business day, Mayumi tells Sadao that he's been chosen to handle a request from the McDonald branch at another location and wants his assistance during a fair they're hosting that night. Hanzo shares an intriguing idea with Sadao, where he explains that they might be able to tap into people's fear to harvest magic by investigating the haunted house advertised at the fair. Meanwhile, Suzuno discreetly eavesdrops on their conversation, and she later informs Emi of their plan. Later on, Chiho invites Emi to join her at the fair, and Emi brings Suzuno along to make the stalking easier, while Sadao remains occupied with his work at the park's McDonald, where he impresses the manager while Chiho tries severally but fails to get his attention each time. Afterwards, the girls decide to explore the rest of the fair, starting with the haunted house, which turns out to be too much for them. They then visit the reptile exhibit, where both Emi and Chiho reveal their fear of reptiles. Suzuno, however, casually mentions having eaten them as a delicacy in the southern part of Ente Isla. But Emi quickly shuts her up before she carelessly reveals her identity. While exploring the exhibition, Emi runs into a maintenance man, causing him to drop his keys. Sadao watches as a circus monkey, who is also called Sadayo, immediately takes these keys. The monkey unlocks the crocodile display, which allows the reptiles to elude capture and make their way to the water park. The Ursiawan crowd panics, Emi Chiho, and a perplexed Suzuno watches Sadao absorbs their dread and casts a spell to calm the animals, saving the fair in the process. As a result, Suzuno is left wondering why he would go to such lengths to assist people because he's supposedly evil. It's been months in Shiro's illness, which has not yet subsided, continues to trouble Sadayo. At this point, their landlord Mikey sends boxes of merchandise she brought in from Hawaii for Sadayo and his group to sell at a bazaar in the shopping district. Meanwhile, Suzuno experiences a flashback that sheds light on her role as an executioner for the church. She was tasked with eliminating members of the rebelling Allied Night Order. Eventually, Chiho and Emi pay a visit to Sadao's apartment building, and together with Suzuno, they assist him in moving all the merchandise to the shopping district before he heads to his shift at McDonald. At this point, Suzuno leaves the group and has a secretive meeting with a hooded individual discussing her mission to kill Sadao. However, she displays hesitation because the big bad boogeyman has turned out to be as nice as Santa. Another flashback reveals Suzuno eavesdropping on the church's leaders during a meeting on Ente Isla. They plot to eliminate their enemies through inconspicuous means, a plan Suzuno regrets being a part of, as she never wanted to take anyone's life. Back in the present, Suzuno discloses her true intentions to Chiho and tries to justify why she wants to kill Sadao. This brings Chiho to tears as she vehemently defends Sadao due to his kindness. Emi steps in, opposing the idea of killing Sadao and instead advocating for a world where everyone can coexist in peace. This statement visibly enrages Suzuno, who walks away pissed. Suddenly, a masked man with a scythe attacks Emi and Chiho as they are walking home. He reveals himself as Sariel, a fallen angel, and proceeds to attack Emi, engaging her in an intense fight. Emi tries to protect Chiho, challenging the masked man with her sword. They appear evenly matched until the attacker overpowers and defeats her, sending her flying through a brick wall. Chiho tries to phone Sadao for assistance, but Suzuno knocks her out. At the same time, Chiho's mother informs Sadao that Chiho hasn't come home, so he asks Hanzo to track Emi's GPS location. He finds Suzuno running quickly in the direction of the city hall, and Sadao also discovers that Mitsuki Saru's identity is a fraud. While Oba awakens in the hospital, he quickly rushes to City Hall to join in the fight. Shiro, who is still recovering in his hospital room, seizes a brief opportunity to venture out and make himself useful. He soon stumbles on an unconscious police officer and out of concern. He begins to investigate the situation, unaware of the situation at hand. Suddenly, out of the shadows, Olba, who has recently regained consciousness, launches a surprise attack on Shiro. Olba, whose only goal is to kill Sadao, discovers Sadao's place of residence from Shiro's insurance card. Meanwhile, at the top of the city hall, the malevolent Sariel subjects Emi to sadistic torment in a ruthless bid to acquire a hidden power she possesses. However, the power refuses to manifest in his presence, no matter what he does, because he's just not worthy. While he continues to torment Emi, Sadao shows up in his satanic form, mustering the remnants of his magical energy. Sadao burns with determination and resilience, which causes him to unleash his remaining magic that obliterates Sariel's protective barrier. Suzuno soon arrives at the scene wielding a magical mallet. She directs her anger towards Sadao, but she is soon shocked to learn that he and his demon comrades have been aware of her identity since she moved into the apartment. This revelation shakes her perception of the situation, and she begins to doubt her actions and why Sadao is so committed to his companions. As Olba seeks to renew his contract with Lucifer, Sariel's true nature begins to surface, revealing a disturbing and perverted aspect. Damn, who would have thought? Emilia, amidst the chaos, clings to the hope that Sadao will come to Chiho's rescue because he has a hero complex. Chiho and Emi are relieved when Sadao finally appears in the scene just like they hoped. However, his depleted magical reserves leave him vulnerable, and Sariel seizes the opportunity to overpower him now that he can barely defend, let alone use strong magical attacks. Elsewhere, Olba utilizes Emilia's magical drink to recharge his own power. He then casts a spell to manipulate the moon's size, thereby boosting Sariel's magic, which makes him even more overpowered than he already is. The entire city is thrown into chaos, and as everyone begins to panic, Sadao also powers up, thanks to his ability to gain magical energy from human terror. When Suzuno arrives, she decides to fight alongside Sadao, since he's the one actually protecting the people, unlike Sariel. In another part of the city, Lucifer manages to outsmart Olba, deactivating his moon spell, which eventually renders him powerless. Sadao then engages Sariel in an intense battle where they destroy several buildings, while wreaking havoc to the city in the process. The intense battle flattens high-rise buildings, altering the landscape with powerful attacks. In their battle, Sariel attacks Emi and she is sent flying off a building, but thankfully Sadao is there to catch her before unveiling his demon sword and destroying Sariel with it, restoring sanity to the city. In a dream, Chiho sees Sadao in his satanic form leaving Earth and returning to Ente Isla without her. The sense of abandonment haunts her, and she can't shake off the feeling of sorrow it leaves behind. Next day, she informs Sadao about her dream, hoping for some reassurance. However, Sadao assures her that he doesn't even have enough magic to open a portal back home. He explains that the previous battle between him and Sariel drained all his magical reserves. Their conversation is interrupted by a noise coming from the McDonald's freezer. They find Sariel inside the freezer, and he soon begins to confess love to Mayumi, which creeps her out. Emi visits Sadao and his group, and quickly notices that there's something weird going on. Shiro requests time off work, further raising her suspicion. So she begs Esmeralda to join her in her usual shameful stalking. They then go to his apartment where they find numerous boxes being delivered. At work, when Sadao requests for a shift change, Chiho becomes anxious as she fears it might be related to Sadao's potential return to Ente Isla. She asks him what's going on, but he doesn't reveal the reason why he wants a shift change to her. This makes Chiho and Emi sneakily tail Sadao, the next day determined to uncover the mystery behind his actions. They soon learn that Sadao and Shiro have taken on extra jobs to pay for Hanzo's GPS trackers, devices that had helped them locate their whereabouts when Sariel abducted them. They return to his apartment with mixed feelings, only to find out Hanzo has fallen prey to an eBay scam, resulting in the acquisition of items that are just as useless as Chiho's general existence. Sadao and Emi decide to take matters into their own hands and head to the retailer for a refund. When they arrive, they find Shiro working there, alongside a stubborn manager who refuses to issue a refund due to a signed contract. Emi finally puts to use her enthusiasm and hot-headedness, which eventually makes the stubborn manager yield to their demands. That's it for this video, folks. If you enjoyed the video, kindly subscribe to see more fun anime recap in your feed.